Chapter 4. Convincing Scott.
2 hours later, Tiffany and Scott emerged into the living room. They had gotten their story correct. Tiffany was not settled about being a vampire yet, but she had accepted she would need to make the conversion. Scott brought up questions that ate at all of their minds. What about me? Soon I'm going to be fucking nuts again. Is there anything we can do? Scott asked. Theraint took a deep breath. This I cannot answer. I've heard rumors of vampires coming back, but they spent weeks in the time lock, Theraint replied. Okay then, if that's what I have to do, Scott said, his eyes set on Tiffany. She gave him the best smile she could offer, but in truth, it was still so much to handle. How long before you flip out? Taylor asked. I figure about 3 hours, Scott said. They used the 3 hours to talk and prepare. Scott headed into the room he swore he would never go into again. Theraint had had some work done on his basement, Taylor observed. There was 2 new time-locked doors. He smiled. Well, that's convenient. When the girls need to convert, he thought to himself. He gave Scott a hug and looked him straight in the eyes. You will do this, he said sternly. Scott hugged the rest of them and headed in. Within 20 minutes he was in a rage. Taylor sat out on the deck again, and Trisha came up and sat with him. What's rattling around up there? She asked. I don't know. I hate to admit it, but... Taylor said and trailed off. What? Trisha prodded. I think something's broken between us, Taylor said. Tears were welling in his eyes. Yeah, I can see that, Trisha said, not wanting to lie to him. She cuddled into him. I have to say it's real pretty here, she said after a long silence. Yep, Taylor said. They walked in. Tiffany, Amy, and Theraint sat at the table drinking a cup of coffee. That coffee? You want some tea? Trisha asked and went and got a cup. Yeah, Taylor replied. Soon after, they all sat around the table. Theraint leaned back and pulled out a large manila envelope. He tossed it on the table. It popped open and identification of all types popped out. Taylor smiled. You will need this when we go to Amsterdam, Theraint said. I won't leave Scott, Tiffany said. And you will not have to. Taylor is the only one that need go. I assume Trisha will be joining us, Theraint replied. And Amy, Tiffany said, a surge of confidence coming from her. Amy looked up. What the hell are you talking about? I'm staying, Amy said. Well, we have a few days, so if you're alright with it, we can do both conversions, Theraint said. No way to put that off, huh? Tiffany asked. The fear was clear in her voice. No, you know it as well as I do. I need to beat this thing, 'cause I'm having some rather odd cravings. Tiffany went in first and stayed next to Scott. Within 2 hours, Amy was in the room next to her. Now all 3 sat in their rooms fighting their personal demons. Why is it I didn't go into a rage when I was in that room? Taylor asked Theraint. Again, noticing that in all the conversions he'd been witness to, he was the only one to stay calm. You're a different case, Theraint said. How so? Taylor asked, confused. You will find out soon enough. That I can promise you, Theraint said. His voice was a bit grave. Taylor and Trisha tried to relax, but they had a great deal to do to get ready for the trip. Taylor and Trisha felt as if they were in a movie as they shopped in all the stores of a mall, buying whatever they wished. Although, as usual, Theraint seemed to think that they had not gotten enough. Constantly throughout the mall he pointed out things that they would like. He almost equaled their purchases in buying things for Amy, just in case she chooses to join up on the trip, is what he justified it with. The days passed. Taylor was messing with his new music player on the back deck when Theraint and Trisha came out. It seems like I'm always waiting for people to get out of those rooms, Taylor said, trying to get a song to play. Yeah, it's starting to seem like that, Trisha agreed. Oh, well, you get a hold of Ashley? Taylor asked. Yeah, she says it's all pretty quiet out there. That's good at least, Taylor replied. He jerked when the music blasted in his ear. Trisha and Taylor broke out into a fit of laughter. Taylor, on the other hand, did not seem pleased and wore a pouty face. Trisha gave him a kiss. It's okay, sweetie. Technology can be a bit complicated sometimes, Trisha quipped. Ha, 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 Taylor said, but he was now smiling. Soon it was time to let out Tiffany. She emerged, and she had increased in power. But she was still focused on Scott, and still dealing with the entire being a vampire. It seemed that Tiffany would never fully accept her station in life now. In a few hours, Amy came out. She had jumped in power, but her presence was much larger, much in the same way Ashley's power had increased. She smiled and asked for a shower. When she came out, the mood was lighter than it had been in days. Scott still fighting, but he seemed calmer, and the two girls, now through the hardest part of their unwanted conversion. "We will need to get back today," Terence said. "Trisha and Taylor and I shall be leaving tonight at 7 for Amsterdam. I have made sure you will have everything you need, but of course my staff can get in contact with me if necessary," Terence said. "And Amy," Tiffany said. "Tiff, let's not go through this again." "I already said I was staying," Amy replied. "Amy, bullshit. You've dreamed about traveling all your life. You've dreamed about adventure. If you stay here, you'll just be sitting on your ass," Tiffany replied. Amy raised an objection, but Tiffany caught her. "Wishing you had went," she finished. Amy blushed. She was beaten. "I took the liberty of buying the necessities if you changed your mind," Terence said, hopeful. "Well then, we better get packed," Amy said with a sigh. Salt Lake shifted from day into evening, and the house was a flurry of activity. As they ran around, getting this and that, everyone seemed wired, except Theraint, who by the moment seemed to get calmer and calmer, a smile playing on his face. It had been a while since he had returned home, and deep down it called to him. At about 5:30 they pulled out of the driveway and into the road. Amy was trying to dry the tears from the goodbye to her sister. Theraint put a comforting hand around her. She smiled up. She was also excited, and even though sadness was on her face, the excitement could be seen as well. Taylor and Trisha, who had begun to gain footing into their new lifestyle, were relaxed and excited about the trip. Taylor pointed out a few things to Trisha on the way out to the airport. They went through a private gate, a quick trip through customs, and they were led to a black jet. They boarded the private jet and were in the air within 20 minutes. Taylor sat like a kid at the window watching his home city disappear. "Nervous?" Trisha asked. "No, excited," Taylor replied. They were on their way to Amsterdam.